This is Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work with another Wolff Responds. I'm responding today to the agreement by the creditors of the country of Argentina. These are institutions and individuals who lent money to the government of Argentina, who have just announced, these creditors have, that they've reached an agreement with the Argentinian government to basically cut the debt of that country in half. To be precise, roughly 45% of the loan was forgiven. And this was done by dropping the interest rate to more than half of what it had been before. It's called debt forgiveness. Sometimes it gets the word jubilee because of certain historical and religious implications. But it is basically an agreement, and that's why I want to talk to you about it, of a creditor who recognizes that the borrower either cannot or will not ever pay that loan back. And so now you have to work out a new and different arrangement. What Argentina agreed to do was basically pay half of what remained of the loan. The loans are actually many different loans from different institutions and different individuals. And they worked out over many months an agreement of how much of a cut, sometimes called a haircut, the creditors would take. How much of a loss. They have been making good money on those loans for quite a while, but in terms of what remains of the debt, what would in fact be paid. And the deal Argentina got, as I said, was basically to have 45% of the loan forgiven. It's off the books. Argentina doesn't have to pay it. Argentina does not have to squeeze its own people to raise the money to pay half of the loan it took out. And by the way, Argentina has done this before. This is the latest in a sequence of defaults on debts that Argentina has either imposed on its creditors or worked out with its creditors. Why am I bringing this up to you? Well, for two reasons. First, there's an old saying in American history that if you're a poor person and you rob someone, you go to jail. But if you're big enough and you rob a big enough sum of money, you can become a senator. In other words, or to put it in another language, some people rob you with a six-gun and some rob you with a fountain pen. The system is one of robbery, as we all know or should know, but the robbery has been made legal. And in 100 ways, you can be screwed out of your money, your wealth, your income in perfectly legal ways. Millions of people have been losing their homes in the United States over the last decade in just that way. Well, countries do it too. But what countries are is even bigger than the banker who takes your money, and even bigger than the fast-talking mortgage handler who takes you for your money or your house or both. So countries have leverage, we call it. They owe so much that they are in a position to bargain and to press their creditors. Give us a deal or we won't give you any of your money back. And we're a country and we can do that. It'll cost us. There'll be pain involved and difficulty, but we can do it and we will do it. And countries have done it. So Argentina just cut its debt in half. And how much was the debt that Argentina cut in half? Hold on to your seats. $111 billion, with a B, billion dollars. Wow, we're talking mega debt. And that was cut in half, saving this country over $50 billion. Second reason I'm bringing it up. Why don't we do that in the United States? Why don't we understand that it would be fair, if it is possible for a country to cut its debts, to look at the need for lots of debtors to cut their debts? Other countries, poorer than Argentina, in even greater need, but not just countries. What about students with levels of debt they cannot reasonably be expected to pay? What about households who have had all kinds of events happen that pushed them into debts they can barely carry as we speak? What kind of a better situation might the whole economy have if there were a general forgiveness of debts? Are there problems associated with it? Of course. But there are problems associated with not relieving those debts. That's what persuaded the creditors of Argentina. They understood that if Argentina actually had to go through with paying off $110, $111 billion worth of debt, the squeeze on the Argentinian people would become so heavy, so dangerous, that you could well have a revolution in Argentina. They've come close to that before. And a new revolutionary government might do what revolutionary governments in the past have often done, to renounce the debts. We are a new revolutionary government, those folks have in the past said. We are not bound by the corrupt engagement of debts by our predecessors. That's why we made a revolution. So you creditors, you cut very profitable deals with all kinds of fees with our predecessors. And you took a lot of money off the table right at the beginning, leaving the whole country with an immense debt through which you and your corrupt associates in our former country's leadership made off like bandits. Game is now over. We're not paying. The creditors knew it. They understood it. So they cut a deal. We'll cancel half the debt. Just pay us the remaining half, please. Squeeze your people for the remaining half, because you can do that, we think, without a revolution. Well, again, it's not so different here, is it? You're squeezing the mass of the American people with levels of debt that are driving them crazy and angry and bitter. Look at our politics. That's where the crazy, angry bitterness shows up, among other places. Opioid self-destruction is another place where this system's incapacity to go. It's straining to explosion. It might be much smarter and wiser to cancel all debts, student debts, credit card debts, mortgage debts, auto loan debts. How about cutting them in half? How about giving the enormous relief to the vast mass of the population, were that to be done? Will there be costs and pains associated? Of course there will. But those have to be weighed against the cost and pains of a capitalism that's falling apart, in part, because it cannot see its way clear to do for the American debtor what was just done for the Argentinian society. This is Richard Wolff with another Wolff Responds. 9 weeks left before the election.